Welcome to the deep dive. Today we are jumping right into what might be the biggest game of the year, definitely the biggest launch title for the new Nintendo Switch 2, Mario Kart World.
It really is a big moment, isn't it? I
Uh,
mean, it's the first brand new Mario Kart in, what, over 10 years? Since Mario Kart 8 back in 2014.
yeah, a whole decade.
And Nintendo's not positioning this as just, an update like MK8 Deluxe, which was great, but they're saying this is a real shift. They basically said they'd perfected the old formula.
Perfected, right. That's quite the statement. And looking at the sources we've got here, reviews from Dreamcast Guy, Digital Foundry's Technical Dive, thoughts from Skill Up, Sunbro Nation, plus this really detailed deep dive review doc. It definitely seems like they're trying something very different.
Absolutely. And, well, there's another thing making waves right away.
Yeah.
The price is Nintendo's first game with the standard price of $80.
$80, yeah. That's definitely a topic in these reviews.
A big one.
Right. So, okay, our goal here is sort of unpack all of this. We want to dig into what Mario Kart World is actually doing, how it uses the new Switch 2 hardware, what's working according to these reviews, what maybe isn't, and really what it all means for you if you're thinking about getting this game, or maybe even the new console itself.
Okay, let's do it. Let's unpack it.
Okay, so first things first. What is Mario Kart World actually trying to be? Because, yeah, it's not just Mario Kart 9.
Right. Nintendo was pretty clear on this based on the sources. They felt, like we said, that they'd pushed the traditional linear track design as far as it could go with MK8 Deluxe perfection, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the next step for them was apparently gameplay built around driving in a really big world.
A big world. So moving away from just discrete tracks.
Exactly. It's less about those self-contained circuits. Now you're in this huge interconnected open world. You actually drive between the race locations. It's more about covering distance, speed across big areas, not just loops.
Okay, and that's where the Switch 2 comes in, right? I mean, how else could they pull this off?
That's the consensus, yeah.
Hmm.
Pretty much all the sources agree this just wouldn't have worked, not properly anyway, on the old Switch. The open world, the player count.
It needed the new hardware.
Definitely. The Switch 2's beefier CPU, the better GPU, more storage. Digital Foundry really breaks this down. It's a direct result of the new tech.
So we're seeing actual technical improvements, high resolution, for instance.
Yeah, 1440p docked, 1080p handheld. That's up from MK8's 1080p 720p split. So sharper image, definitely. Though Digital Foundry also noted it wasn't maybe a massive generational leap visually overall.
But performance, that's key for Mario Kart.
Crucial. And they targeted a solid 60 frames per second, and it seems like they mostly hit it, even with 24 players flying around this open world.
Wow, 24 players at 60 FPS.
Yeah. They mentioned some minor things, like photo mode is 30 FPS, and apparently the game chat video feed can get choppy, but the core racing gameplay, rock solid 60. That's what matters.
And the look of the game itself, better lighting and stuff.
Oh, yeah, quite a bit there. Digital Foundry talks about baked global illumination, better indirect lighting.
Yeah.
Basically, light bounces around more realistically, makes everything look richer.
And reflections, water.
Real-time reflections, using cube maps, so shiny surfaces and wet roads look way better. And the materials themselves, like karts and characters, use PBR, physically based rendering, plus higher-res textures, normal maps. It all looks more detailed, more solid.
More detail everywhere, it sounds like.
Yeah, like the geometry is more complex. NPCs in the stands are actual 3D models now, not cardboard cutouts. They're just, less afraid to use polygons for curves and details.
And the world feels more alive. Interactive bits.
Grass moves when you drive through it. Collisions feel like they have better physics.
Yeah.
And the water, yeah, that got specific mentions. More like wave race, apparently. You drive on the surface, it reacts to waves, bombs. It's properly physical.
Is there weather and stuff, too?
There is a day-night cycle and weather changes, yeah. Mostly visual, seems like. And some sources said it happens pretty fast, maybe a bit too fast.
The Switch 2 also adds some social features, right?
Yeah, game chat for up to 12 friends. And this camera play thing where it can show player expressions, which was specifically called out for Mario Kart World. Interesting idea.
So the main takeaway on the tech front is that the Switch 2 isn't just making it prettier, it's actually enabling this whole new open world 24-player design.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the critical link. This game's core design relies on that hardware jump. It directly shapes the experience you have.
Okay, so with that power, how does it actually play this new open world, the free roam mode? That's the big visible change.
Right. You can just drive anywhere. Roads, off-road, connecting different areas. And in this world, there are single-player things to do, like P-switch challenges.
P-switch challenges, what are those like?
Seems opinions vary. Sunbro Nation thought some were pretty engaging, even tough. Others, like Dreamcast Guy, found them a bit simple, maybe like filler content.
Okay, and collectibles?
Yep, peach coins and these toad bags that unlock costumes for the characters, so there's stuff to find while you're driving around.
How's the reception been to just driving around in free roam?
Pretty mixed, honestly. Looking across the sources, some people, like Sunbro Nation and Skill Up, seem to really enjoy just cruising, exploring, taking in the vibe, maybe practicing.
Yeah.
But others, yeah. The Deep Dive Review Doc and Dreamcast Guy used words like lacks direction, sometimes feels empty. One source called it basically a glorified lobby.
A glorified lobby. Ouch.
And Digital Foundry highlighted a big practical issue. There's no proper in-game map for free roam, like one that tracks what missions you've done or even just shows the roads clearly. Apparently that makes trying to collect everything or complete stuff feel really overwhelming.
Yeah, I can see that. It raises that question, doesn't it? How do you make the tight, frantic fun of Mario Kart work in this huge open space?
That's the challenge they discuss. Does the open world add real Mario Kart fun? Or is it just kind of generic open world stuff bolted on, fitting that core loop into this big, less structured place? It's tricky.
But it wasn't all mixed, right? There was one new mode everyone seemed to love.
Oh, yeah. Knockout Tour, that seems to be a massive hit.
Okay, tell me about Knockout Tour. It sounded pretty cool.
So it's 24 players, competitive, but instead of just single races, you race across these long, continuous stretches of the world, like maybe 6 course areas all stitched together into one rally.
Continuous racing.
Yeah, and it's elimination style, based on checkpoints. So players get knocked out as the race goes on, and the tension just ramps up and up.
Ah, like a battle royale kind of feel?
Exactly. The sources were glowing. Hallmark of excellence, impossible to put down, really fun. Skill Up called it a genius mode. Sunbro Nation loved it too. It really seems to capture that competitive Mario Kart intensity, but scales it up.
So it uses the big world, but in a structured, competitive way.
Precisely. It takes the 24 players, the interconnected world, but channels it into this high-stakes format. The long races, the elimination. It seems to really enhance that core racing loop. It uses the world idea to boost the competition, not dilute it.
Okay, that makes sense. And speaking of 24 players, that's double the usual number. How does that actually feel in a regular race?
Chaos. Pure chaos, basically. The reviews use words like exciting, chaotic, pure fun.
I bet.
You could apparently go from last place to first and then back to last super quickly. Just so much happening, so many items flying. Hits feel more unpredictable based on the angle and just the sheer number of people.
Sounds manic. And you can play this lots of ways. Split screen, online.
Yep. Up to 4-player, local split screen, local wireless, online matchmaking friends, or worldwide. You can even do 2-player split screen while playing online. Lots of options there.
Cool. So beyond the modes and player count, did they add new ways to actually, drive, new mechanics?
They did. Several things stood out in the sources. There's actual off-roading now, proper boat racing sections using those new water physics, rail grinding like in Sonic, and new moves like wall jumping and wall rides. More ways to navigate the tracks.
And wasn't there a rewind feature mentioned, like in Forza?
Yeah, exactly like Forza Horizon.
Yes, it
lets you undo a mistake. The sources see it mostly as an accessibility thing, though, because it doesn't affect anyone else in the race.
Okay. And what about that new jump, the charge jump?
Right, Skill Up talked about that. You hold grift while going straight, then release with a direction. He said it was actually pretty tricky to use well, but adds a high skill ceiling for players who want to master it.
Interesting. And item aiming changed too.
Big time.
Right.
You now have precise 360-degree aiming with the right stick. So you can actually, snipe people strategically.
Bro.
What's interesting is you can apparently use this advanced aiming even if you're using assists like smart steering or auto acceleration.
Huh. So it seems like they're trying to do both things at once. Make it easier for newcomers with rewind and assists, but also add deeper techniques like the charge jump and aiming for veterans.
Yeah, that seems to be the philosophy. Lower the barrier to entry, but also raise the skill ceiling. Trying to please everyone, maybe.
Okay, so new world, new modes, new ways to drive. What about the actual content, like characters, carts, tracks?
Plenty to talk about there. Characters, 50 playable ones. That's the most ever in a Mario Kart. Includes all the regulars, but also some really weird ones. The Deep Dive review mentioned a literal cow and penguin.
A cow? Seriously?
Apparently. And some characters are even track obstacles you interact with.
And costumes, that's new, right?
Yeah, 24 characters get unlockable alternate costumes. You get them by collecting snacks or to-go bags in the open world.
Mm-hmm.
Seems a bit random.
Snacks, okay.
Couple of sources, like Dreamcast Guy and Sunbro Nation, thought it was weird that the costumes show up as totally separate character icons on the select screen, not just, skins.
Yeah, that is a bit odd.
And Sunbro specifically pointed out Drybones doesn't get any costumes, poor guy.
Ah, what about vehicles? Carts, bikes.
You start with 11 types: karts, bikes, ATVs. Unlock more by collecting coins. 100 coins per vehicle, max 20 per race. Familiar system. They still have different stats, but, and this is a big but,
Uh-oh.
they completely removed the detailed stat customization from Mario Kart 8. Picking the body, wheels, glider to fine-tune your stats.
It's gone.
Totally gone. Replaced by purely cosmetic Mario Kart World stickers. You can stick one on your cart. That's it for customization.
Wow. Okay, the deep dive review mentioned that could be controversial. I can see why. People loved tinkering with builds.
Yeah, big change for the hardcore players.
All right, let's talk tracks. How many and how are they?
30 base tracks, 32 with variants. Organized into 8 Grand Prix Cups, 4 tracks each, 50cc up to 150cc. Special Cup and Rainbow Road unlock later, standard stuff. But remember, they're also used in those knockout tour rallies, stitched together into long, continuous runs. That whole interconnectedness idea is key. Even in Grand Prix, you apparently drive between the races in the open world.
Okay, but the track design itself. Good, bad, indifferent.
Overwhelmingly praised, actually. Sources like Digital Foundry and SkillUp were seriously impressed. SkillUp called it easily the best track design in the series, full of polish, creativity, scale, secrets.
Really, best ever.
That's what they're saying. Digital Foundry gave examples. Updated classics feel way better to drive, like Wario Shipyard is more navigable, Dino Jungle has smoother turns, Moo Meadows has grass that reacts, cows you can bump into,
Yeah.
more interactive.
So the classics feel new again.
Seems like it.
Yeah.
Toad's Factory looks beautiful. Peach Beach has new laps. Choco Mountain's got this whole mining theme now.
Yeah.
Wario Stadium is apparently drastically different from the N64 one.
And the brand new tracks.
Also got high marks. Bowser's Castle, Acorn Heights, Rainbow Road, praised for scale, imagination, just being really well designed. Digital Foundry even compared them favorably to the best tracks from the MK8 Booster Course Pass, saying the MKW tracks have higher quality overall.
Okay, that's really positive news for the core racing. How about items? Any cool new ones?
Classics are back. Your red shells, bananas, all that. New stuff includes the Mega Mushroom. You get huge, fast, flattened people. A coin shell that makes rivals drop coins when hit. Kamex Magic, which does unpredictable stuff to opponents. There's Dash Food from Yoshi's Restaurant, apparently. Give a speed boost, might change your outfit briefly, and a box item that gives boost and continuous coins.
And the aiming changes how you use them all, right?
Yeah, that 360 aiming adds a strategic layer to everything. Though, interestingly, Dreamcast Guy wasn't super impressed with the new items themselves. He felt they kind of suck and were too easy to dodge, even claiming he could sometimes outskill a blue shell. So, maybe some debate there.
And the sound? Music?
Got good mentions. Sunbro Nation and SkillUp both praised the soundtrack. Mix of remixes and new stuff. Sunbro called it a highlight. SkillUp mentioned over 200 songs in the game, which is massive.
Okay, loads of content then. Which brings us back to the price. The elephant in the room.
Yep. US $79.99 standard. Dreamcast Guy was blunt. Most expensive Nintendo game ever. Controversial price point. He said it directly lowered his score for the game, which ended up a 7 out of 10.
Wow. How did others feel about the value?
More varied. Sunbro Nation basically said, look, value is entirely subjective. He felt he'd get his money's worth because he expects to play it a ton, especially if he got that $50 bundle deal Nintendo mentioned for the fall.
The $50 bundle.
Yeah, apparently an option, digitally at least, for a while. He saw the game as a solid evolution, worth it for him at that price. But the deep dive review definitely noted that price concern came up a lot in player feedback they saw.
So it really depends on the player how much they'll play, maybe, if they get that bundle.
Exactly. Is the sheer amount of content, characters, tracks, modes enough to justify $80 for everyone? Especially if maybe the open world part doesn't totally land for you, or you miss the cart stats. The sources suggest different people will have different answers.
Okay, so pulling it all together,
Right.
what's the overall vibe from these reviews? Thumbs up, thumbs down, somewhere in between?
Leaning positive, but definitely mixed. You see phrases like substantial evolutionary step from the deep dive doc. Dreamcast Guy said, not terrible, we'll get better, hinting at updates maybe. Digital Foundry called it a tremendous accomplishment technically. SkillUp just said he loved it, called the package very meaty. Sunbro Nation was like, not what I expected, but I'm having fun. So Generally positive feelings, but with caveats.
The definite high points seem to be.
The tech, for sure, looks great. Runs smoothly at 60Ps, really shows off the Switch 2. That Knockout Tour mode is a universal win. The
Right.
track design is praised across the board, maybe best ever. And just the scale, lots of characters, tracks, and that crazy 24-player chaos seems genuinely fun.
And the concerns or the more mixed areas.
Mostly the open-world execution. Some loved exploring, others found it empty or aimless. The price tag is a big one for some reviewers and users. And missing features, no 200cc at launch, some specific costumes missing like the Yoshi colors, and definitely the removal of Kart stat building for cosmetic stickers.
Yeah.
Oh, and the lack of a good map and free roam.
Right. What about the future? Do people see this as a platform like MK8 Deluxe became?
Yeah, that seems to be the feeling. Strong foundation, lots of potential for DLC, more courses, maybe new modes. People are already speculating about crossover characters like Captain Falcon or Link down the line. Seems likely.
So wrapping up, Mario Kart World is Nintendo swinging for the fences, trying to evolve that perfected formula using the Switch 2's power for scale, an open world, new modes.
Right. And the result, based on these early looks, is ambitious, technically impressive in many ways, but maybe not a perfect landing for everyone. There are clear successes like Knockout Tour or the track design, but also real questions about the open world's role and, of course, that price.
It's interesting, though. You mentioned Nintendo felt they perfected the traditional formula first, and now some of the most praised new stuff, like Knockout Tour, seems to double down on intense competitive racing, just structured differently, not necessarily the open world wandering.
That's a really interesting point, yeah.
So it makes you wonder, doesn't it? What does this mean for Mario Kart going forward? Should the series keep pushing deeper into huge open worlds and exploration? Or does the success of things like Knockout Tour suggest that maybe the best way forward is still refining that core chaotic racing, maybe finding new ways to structure it, like with interconnected tracks, rather than focusing purely on vastness?
Yeah, what does evolution really mean for a formula that was already so beloved? Does it mean bigger worlds or better racing?
Something for you to think about. What do you want from the future of Mario Kart?